Welcome to episode number 58 of the American Regularis podcast. I'm your host, JD Walter, and if you like what you hear in this episode or what you find here is useful or pertinent to you, please give the episode, give the page a like, subscribe, follow me. You can follow me on Twitter if you would like at reg_American1. Whatever you can do to help out the algorithm, get more people listening, greatly appreciated. Now, a week ago, when I gave the last podcast, I think I said, hey, stay tuned. It looks like we're going to see some stuff with Israel and Iran heating up. And boy, howdy, as all of you know, a week ago, Saturday the 13th, I believe, Israel begins attacking Iran. It targets Tehran, the capital of Iran, military nuclear installations like Natanz, as well as different homes of like military officials, scientists. So it quickly escalated. Of course, this was Israel initiating the violence, the military actions against Iran in response to recent IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency's reports on uranium enrichment, right? The nuclear program of Iran. Now, proponents, there's a lot, this is obviously, as the Middle East always, extremely divided, extremely contentious, and those of you that know me as a non-interventionalist, wild-eyed libertarian type, yeah, I'm completely against this. This seems what they would have said against the Russians in Ukraine, if not unprovoked. I'd say it's certainly unjust. But many people, all the usual suspects like Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, these guys are already rattling their sabers and extremely excited about Israel attacking Iran. Now, we're going to look at this episode. We're going to talk about why they did it, how people have been doing it, what Iran's response was. We're going to be talking about some of the debates, which are absolutely entertaining, even for such dire and severe topics such as this. And we're going to look at all this and kind of just break it down piece by piece and explain what's going on, why people are backing it, and why the people that are backing this are just plain wrong. So, to start out, right, Israel attacks Iran. And immediately, you have Zionists, war hawks, all the usual suspects saying, it's completely justified. Iran is, as you know, right on the brink of a nuclear weapon, and as soon as they do that, it's game over. Some of them, including Netanyahu, are even saying like, oh, if they get a nuke, then America's, completely at risk. And of course, on the same side, you have guys like Ben Shapiro saying this was not Israel starting it. They've been at war. And people have linked this to October 7th. They have almost all certainly linked it to Hezbollah, who is in alliance somewhat with Iran. And as Dave Smith and other guys bring up, well, if you connect the actions of one person's proxy or one person's partner in something and say, okay, therefore, ipso facto, they've been attacking you, then look at who America has been directly attacking, right? And it would include the fact that we've already directly attacked Iran, as Israel is a proxy of ours. So you get a lot of slippery slope stuff when you try to obfuscate who attacked first. You don't get to just bomb a country and say, well, they were already at war with us, so this wasn't actually preemptive because someone else attacked us who they get along with. That's not how it works. And if it does work that way, well, it doesn't help out the Warhawks case for this, right? And we've seen Iran strike back. There's tons of video footage of missiles, and I believe now drones are also going and attacking Israel. This is a very high-stakes game. It's very very treacherous ground to be walking on. For starters, as Israel is extremely opposed to Iran obtaining nukes, Iran is part of the non-proliferation agreement. Israel's not, and Israel is the only country in the Middle East that has nukes. They believe they need it, as many of the surrounding countries have very poor to hostile relations with Israel. Those have not been improving as they've been waging a war against Gaza for the past year, almost a year, I should say. And Israel is a not large country, right? I think it's around 8 to 10 million people, whereas Iran is just shy of 90 million people. So they are completely outgunned in terms of man and manpower. The nukes are kind of their ace up the sleeve. It's not so much, I think, from a real politics point of view, which I don't necessarily prescribe to, but Iran holding nukes isn't so much the fact that they will definitely use it, as is if Iran has nukes, then Israel's power imbalance in the Middle East, along with its alliance with the U.S., is greatly disrupted. So they, whenever there's a chance, especially when I say they, I don't mean the entirety of Israel, but its government, especially the Likud party, really tends to always cry wolf about the threat of Iran having nuclear missiles, which just isn't the case. Even after they started attacking Iran this past week, there's video of Netanyahu saying, yeah, they could be about a year away from making a nuclear missiles, a nuclear warhead ready to fire off. Which, I think before that he had said they were just weeks away. And we're going to play a clip right now many of you might have seen, but this is a compilation of Benjamin Bibi Netanyahu talking about just how close Iran is to obtaining a nuclear weapon. Now, this is not a recent compilation. This is a compilation that is extended since 1996. Okay? Limp Bizkit wasn't around yet when Netanyahu first started talking about how close Iran was to obtaining a nuke. So, let's give that a listen.
The deadline for attaining this goal is getting extremely close.
That was 1996.
And Iran, by the way, is also outpacing Iraq in the development of ballistic missile systems.
That's 2002.
That they hope will reach the eastern seaboard of the United States within 15 years. By next spring, at most, by next summer, at current enrichment rates, they will have finished the medium enrichment and move on to the final stage. From there, it's only a few months, possibly a few weeks.
So there he is in 2012 saying that by 2013 they should be able to have a nuclear bomb.
Before they get enough enriched uranium for the first bomb. The foremost sponsor of global terrorism could be weeks away from having enough enriched uranium for an entire arsenal of nuclear weapons.
That was 2015. This again is 2015.
That would place a militant Islamic terror regime weeks away from having the fissile material for an entire arsenal of nuclear bombs. If not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year, it could be within a few months, less than a year.
So pretty impressive that whatever the policies are or whatever the incompetence is of the Iranian scientists, to be so close to a nuclear bomb since 1996, but to even June 13th when Israel attacks Iran, they're still a year away. And as you listen to proponents of the war, it sounds like they've never been closer. But if you listen to proponents of the war in posterity, it sounds like they're at the exact same distance or possibly further away. So why is this? Their argument's going to be the IAEA says that they've enriched, I think the agreement is that they're not supposed to go above 3.67%, because that's the amount of uranium enrichment that you need for civilian purposes, for medical purposes. I think maybe you need a little bit more or something. And Iran is well past that. They're at 60%, which is still fairly far away. Now, that is because this is what Scott Horton and others are saying. This is known as a latent nuclear threat. Okay? If they built nukes, they believe that there would be attacks on them, which has just happened. However, the latent nuclear threat is saying, look, if we are attacked, we're at least at a point where we can start to develop nuclear weapons to defend ourselves in a moderately short amount of time. So instead of having a gun drawn or in your holster, it's like, I got to go to the gun safe and put it together. Might take a little bit, but technically I don't have it, but I could get it. I could defend myself with it if I need it. That's what we're looking at the moment. Keep in mind, there are other countries. This isn't a novel idea from Iran. Germany does this. Japan does this. They have nuclear latent threats. They have enriched uranium beyond what they need for civilian use, but they use it to say, hey, if we need to create a nuke, we will be so far away from it. The thing is, if you've listened since 1996, they've been doing this, and they haven't advanced it further. This has been okay. Now, this isn't to say that I think Iran is some, icon of a peaceful nation. It's not. They do plenty of stuff with proxies in Syria, in Iraq. Certainly, we see it in Lebanon with Hezbollah. But the last time that Iran had a full-scale invasion of somebody without being first initially invaded was like 1856. They haven't been an outwardly aggressive nation historically. I mean, we could go back to the Persian Empire, sure, okay, but I mean, that's a little bit of a semantic thing, right? We're not going to count that. However, Israel has been basically since its inception, at least occupying different parts of its surrounding territories. So they haven't been aggressive in terms of invading actual land, and since they haven't particularly been aggressive in developing a nuclear weapon, they've done this nuclear latent threat type strategy. And if you look, the only people like America who has been aggressive towards, who has been hostile with, the only people they haven't really went after is those who have nukes. Now, if they built the nuke, we would go after them. So the nuclear latent threat is kind of this balancing act between saying we want to have some of the protection of being a country with at least the possible threat of a weapon of mass destruction, but we don't want to have a weapon of mass destruction because then the U.S. would go after us if they saw us making it. So they were trying to just walk this line because they see what happens if you don't have it. In Libya, the U.S. overthrows them. In Iraq, whether they had them or not, certainly seems like they didn't. They overthrow them. North Korea is safe because they had the nukes before they could get in there. So Iran was in this precarious position, and they've been trying to do this balancing act, which, while they're in a lot more of a political hotspot than Germany or Japan, it's pretty much the same policy. Now, I'm not saying that Iran's theology, I'm not saying Iran's politics are equivocal to Japan's and Germany's. Sure, they're more of a threat. Fine. I guess to some, I would say they're more of a threat. I want to say they're more of a threat to America. They pose no threat to America. Even if they could take this year and rapidly expand, and then they build this nuke that Netanyahu has said they were months away from since 1996, or a year away from since 1996, they would still have to figure out how to transport it over there. Israel has already taken over the airspace in Western Iran. Like, they could never get it to America. Which kind of brings us to our next point, is this divide in MAGA right now, because many people say, oh, this is Trump, strongman diplomacy, protect our ally Israel, kind of the normal old conservative Republican talking points. How, oh, this guy's a threat and we got to fight him and we're justified in doing that. And you know, anyone who tries to militarize is clearly worthy of being attacked, whereas we're the most militarized nation in the history of the world. And if we attack them, then it, you know, de facto means they were in the wrong. Or if Israel attacks them, as in this case, it means de facto they were in the wrong. Right now, Trump's been pretty disappointing in this, and I mean very disappointing. It first came out that when Netanyahu's government attacks Iran, they, you know, Trump was in negotiations with Iran as this is happening. Then it turns out people are saying, oh, he didn't know at all. He didn't know. And then, so the speculation is either, and then Trump supported it. He's demanded on X a full surrender. You hear this and you go, okay, so was Trump in the dark and then he just has to ride along with Netanyahu after he's been having this stuff done behind his back? It turns out that's not the case. Netanyahu has said that not only did Trump greenlight it, but then it's like, hey, they've given us, you know, I think they've used our weapons to do it. We've helped with information. And now we're talking about, there's a lot of speculation that we're going to be directly involved before too long, particularly in the case of attacking a nuclear site of Iran's called Fordo, which is apparently like based under a mountain, very deep underground, and it would take American bunker busting bombs that weigh like a payload of like 33,000 pounds or something like that. And the only thing that can really deliver those are like American B-2s. So for that to happen, it would have to be American. And this is causing a big rift in the conservative party. I would say it's causing a lot of rifts everywhere in America, like among both parties, but particularly in MAGA, because some want to do whatever Trump says. And some say if he says it, then it is de facto MAGA. He's the only person that decides what is and what isn't Make America Great Again, or what is or what isn't America First. And others are saying attacking some nation that is of no credible threat to the United States. And this is where I firmly believe they pose no credible threat to the United States. They're 7,000 miles away from the center of the U.S., maybe just a little bit under, right? You want to fly from Kansas to Tehran, you're looking at over 6,000 miles. They pose no threat to us. So America First isn't putting ourselves in another military entanglement where hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of civilians die, just like 1 million died in the Iraq War, and we were there for 20 years. Some of us say that's not America First, and that was pretty much the reason Trump was, I believe, the deportation things as well, border control. But I believe one of the main things was the Republicans finally kind of felt like jerks with the Bush administration putting us into these terrible wars that not only made us poorer, not only made us less just, they also killed 1 million Iraqi civilians. And you can extend this to the Obama regime with Libya, but we have seen nothing positive come out of our military interventions in the Middle East. And keep in mind, Iran is a bigger nation than Iraq was. Iraq in 2003 had a population of around 45 million people. And now we're looking at just shy of 90 million in Tehran. This would not be a simple thing. And look, that latent nuclear threat I said they developed, well, they've been attacked now. So all these people that are saying, hey, look, Iran, is this nuclear threat? No, they had a latent nuclear threat in case they were attacked. But now you've attacked them. So yes, it might be a self-fulfilling prophecy where the neocons end up saying, look, now they are making it. We told you. But the truth is, attacking Iran in this way has made the possibility of Iran aggressively seeking nuclear weapons more likely than ever. Okay? Now, this has caused lots and lots of debates, especially, like I said, among the conservatives. And one of the best ones earlier this week was Tucker Carlson having Senator Ted Cruz on his podcast. And it is, if you have not seen it, something you must watch. I thought it was one of the best interviews I've seen Tucker Carlson ever do. He takes Ted Cruz to task, in my opinion. And Ted Cruz really failed in having a cogent defense of Israel and America's war efforts on Iran. And he does the usual things. He calls Tucker an anti-Semite. He accuses him of having Jimmy Carter and Obama foreign policies, which Tucker just laughs at with his little Tucker laugh. Doesn't even know what it means, and I've got to agree. You know, he's trying to put him out as some naive dove. And if you have to call someone anti-Semitic, or you just have to sit there and say, oh, because you would be in agreement with someone on the left, it's a bad policy. That's one of the dumbest right-wing talking points you can have. Look at how many people, the left is not as good as being anti-war as they used to be, but the best voices, aside from Ron Paul, during Iraq, they were all on the left. Like, great. Sometimes, you know, Ted Cruz would, in a blink of an eye, like to talk about how, you know, maybe some of the stronger anti-war voices or people were elected, Republicans were elected to end wars, right? He would use that in his arguments if he felt it would help his argument. But he doesn't. Instead, here he goes, oh, you can't go against me, because if you disagree with me, it means you have the same ideas Bernie Sanders or Dukakis or Ro Khanna. And so it's automatically null and void, which is just dumb. But Ted Cruz, he also tried to do this thing, and I hate this so much, is that when the moderates try to talk about how they're moderates, which just isn't the case, and I know that doesn't make sense, and I'm going to tell it right now. Ted Cruz, in this interview, described himself as a non-interventionist hawk, right? He wants to have his cake and eat it too. He wants like guys that like Rand Paul and Thomas Massie and Ron Paul like myself to go, oh, he can be kind of with us, and he doesn't want to put himself fully in the camp of a war fetishist like Lindsey Graham, just some sort of terrible neocon war hawk. So he tries to make himself a moderate. Now that he's established himself as neither, he's right and balanced in the middle, then he wants to talk about how much we should attack Iran. He also talks about how he has it from a biblical standpoint, which Tucker Carlson does a great job pointing out. Like, why? Where does it say that in the Bible? He goes, well, I don't really remember where it says the line I just quoted. And Tucker Carlson goes, oh, that's in Genesis, but it doesn't mean that. And Ted Cruz just digs himself a hole. There's a famous clip going around right now where he asks him, hey, what's the population of Iran? What's the ethnic makeup? And Ted Cruz can't provide these answers. He goes, how can you talk about attacking a nation you know nothing about? That's kind of like the most famous clip I've seen. I don't think it's the best part of the interview at all. There's a part where Ted Cruz is defending what's going on in a Ukraine-Russia war, and he's talking about the two major things that made Russia invade Ukraine, and he brings up Joe Biden, and he brings up some other things. And then Tucker Carlson goes, well, what about 2014? Didn't something happen then? He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he goes, well, in 2014, there was a coup, a government overthrow that the U.S. got involved with. He goes, well, I want to stick to the narrative right now. That was his response, the narrative, which is just one of those things when the politicians let the truth come out. He doesn't want to talk about facts. He doesn't want to talk, and not just in the case of Ukraine and Russia, but also certainly in the case of Iran and Israel. He goes, no, let's just stick to the narrative. Let's just stick to the narrative. So I'm going to play a little clip from the Tucker Carlson, Ted Cruz interview, and we'll go over it.
I think that it's just interesting because what you're now describing in a very defensive way, I will say, is foreign influence over our politics.
No.
And you began, and it's so transparently obvious to everybody. I don't know why you would be embarrassed of it. You've said that you are sincerely for Israel. I believe you. I don't think you have some weird agenda. You seem to be sincere.
By the way, Tucker, it's a very weird thing the obsession with Israel, when we're talking about foreign countries,
it's hardly an obsession.
You're not talking about Chinese, you're not talking about Japanese, you're not talking about the Brits, you're not talking about the French. The question, what about the Jews? What about the Jews?
Oh, like, I'm an anti-Semite now. Senator,
you're asking the questions, Tucker. You're asking, why are the Jews controlling our foreign policy?
Senator,
that's what you just asked.
Hardly saying that, and I have.
That is exactly what you just said.
Well, actually, I can speak for myself and tell you what I am saying.
Good.
On behalf not simply of myself, but on of my many Jewish friends who would have the same questions, which is to what extent, and it's interesting you're trying to derail my questions by calling me an anti-Semite, which you are.
I did not.
Of course you are. And rather than be honorable enough to say it right to my face, you are in a sleazy feline way implying it or just asking questions about the Jews. I'm not asking questions about the Jews. There's nothing to do with Jews or Judaism. It has to do with the foreign government.
Isn't Israel controlling our foreign policy? That's not about the Jews.
You said, I'm asking you.
And by the way, you're the one that just called me, I think, a sleazy feline. So let's be clear.
It's sleazy to imply that I'm an anti-Semite, which you just did.
No, I just said, why is that the only question you're asking? You answer it. Give me another reason. If you're not an anti-Semite, give me another reason why the obsession is Israel.
I am in no sense obsessed with Israel. We are on the brink of war with Iran. And so these are valid questions.
But you're not asking about Iran or the
If I can finish, you asked me why I'm obsessed with Israel.
Yep.
3 minutes after telling me that when you first ran for Congress, you elucidated one of your main goals, which is to defend Israel.
Yes.
Okay, so there you go. Baseless. And after he said one of his main goals is to be the most pro-Israel senator in the United States. He just had said that to him, as Tucker Carlson says at the end there. And then he goes on to calling Tucker Carlson an anti-Semite for holding a different view than him. This is what happens. This is what happens with politicians, even ones who are pretty good debaters like Ted Cruz. When you are on the wrong side of an argument, it's very hard to win. And so he results to ad hominems. You're obsessed with the Jews. And he's like, I've never even said the Jews. I'm talking about Israel, which semantic. But anyways, Ted Cruz immediately goes to ad hominems. You're an anti-Semite. And Tucker Carlson ends up saying, you called me an anti-Semite in a sleazy feline way. So, I have no problem. Ted Cruz, Zodiac Killer, sleazy feline, whatever you want. We can use more nicknames for him. I thought it was great. And it was, I thought, very telling that these people that are obsessed with Israel, that are in bed with AIPAC, that are quoting the Bible in ways that they want to use it for the aggression of Israel, for all these things. And then they say, you're the one that's obsessed with Israel. I think is just beyond strange. Absolutely weird. And at the same time, extremely telling of just how nonsensical their position is and how unjust it is. They have a very hard time, other than citing their only justification for this war, if they're not trying to make it sound like Israel is just like this nice little kid being shoved into the locker. It's just, hey, they're a year away from nukes, and as soon as that timer hits off, then, Iran's going to wipe Israel off the face of the earth, even though they've been at the exact same since 96. And to take this view is the moderate thing, right? This is, as I said earlier, this is Ted Cruz being a non-interventionist hawk, is to attack Iran. Ben Shapiro, who we all know as a huge Zionist and a huge neocon, he was sitting there going, oh, this is just the purpose of the horseshoe. It shows the horseshoe so well because you have guys like Rand Paul and Thomas Massie and Ron Paul on one end of the horseshoe, and then on the other end of the horseshoe you have guys like Bernie Sanders or Ro Khanna or something. He's like, and it's the middle. That's the logical people, right? They're trying to paint the picture that another large-scale, possibly nuclear war in the Middle East is the moderate position, and that this horseshoe is a bad thing to be on the ends because there's lefties that agree with it, because Ro Khanna or Bernie Sanders or someone of that ilk might agree with you that a giant, large-scale Middle Eastern war is bad. And so where do you need to be? You need to be at the bottom of the horseshoe, where John McCain and Lindsey Graham and Hillary Clinton and Ben Shapiro and Ted Cruz, where all those guys are, and where you want to spend yourself $36 trillion in debt, and you want to have 130 bases around the world. That's the moderate position. And I see no better I mean, this is just insane. And I thought I saw a beautiful just example and refutation of this on Piers Morgan the other day, where Scott Horton was on. You should definitely watch it. Him, Aaron Mate, the Navy SEAL that killed Osama bin Laden, and then a conservative lady named Emily Austin. And she's taking more of this Ted Cruz, Ben Shapiro type stance. If you watch it, Scott Horton, as always, he comes correct with more facts and knowledge and wisdom and historical understanding than any of these other people. I mean, Aaron Mate does great as well. And honestly, the guy that the Navy SEAL, like, I didn't agree with him, but he had some areas I did agree with him. This Emily Austin, however, was just, I've never seen someone so out of their depth. It looked like one of those things where the guy that tries to use chi energy to fight an MMA fighter, and then all of a sudden he just gets like knocked out by a simple jab. That's basically what this was. I want to play this for you now. This is Emily Austin coming after Scott Horton. Right after Scott Horton just kind of lays bare the situation and just how terrible of an idea this is. This is Emily Austin's attempt to attack the great Scott Horton. And it just made me laugh out loud.
I just want to address a point he said before we move on, because contrary to what I said, he keeps saying that Iran's not a threat to America. So since Scott decided to become Iran's mouthpiece, can you please clarify for me what Khomeini means when he says death to America, death to the West, and forceful conversions? Can you translate in the language that you so clearly understand that all of us are missing? Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, Khomeini died in 1989. You don't know what you're talking about. Second of all, the chant, you'll notice, all of y'all in the audience and on the panel notice how often the Hawks bring this up and how much heavy lifting these chants are doing. Are you so terrified of chants? In fact, they have no Air Force. They have no Navy. They have no ability. They have no offensive force that they can threaten this country with. So in other words, you're saying you're really upset because they're hurting your feelings. But
just wonderful. Look, you don't know anything about history. Khomeini died before you were born, likely. But she's like one of those young, pretty ladies that they love that she might have a conservative viewpoint, so they put her on against a killer like Scott Horton. And he's like, look, this guy's been dead since 1989. Furthermore, they have no Air Force. They have no Navy. They have no nukes, for Pete's sake. And so if you're that concerned about a group of people living in a barren land on the far side of the world chanting death to America, he's like, the only reason you're wanting to attack them is because it hurts your feelings that they don't like you. Whatever. You can disparage them, you can hate them, whatever. They're on the far side of the world. They pose no credible threat to us. So if there's a group of people and they're dressed in strange clothes and they've got a strange religion and they're chanting that they want us dead, it doesn't matter. We're on the other side of the planet. They have no nukes. They have no way to get to us. And by the way, even if they did have nukes, which they haven't been advancing on since 96, even if they did have, or before that, even if they did have nukes, they couldn't get them here. They have no Air Force. They have no Navy. It's a moot point. Your saber rattling is because you found an excuse to saber rattle. So yeah, that's what it is. You're a snowflake. You don't like that they say death to America. I don't care for it either, right? I love America. I love our people. If they were a real credible threat, then we could have a serious conversation. But until then, you're just embarrassing yourself. You're a snowflake that got your feelings hurt by people chanting in a desert on the far side of the world. So shut up. Quit trying to get people's lives to die needlessly. Civilian lives, women and children, to die needlessly because Israel has been lying about nuclear armament for the last 30 years. Be quiet. All right. Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, please like and subscribe and go out and listen to the Ted Cruz Tucker podcast. Go out and listen to Scott Horton on Piers Morgan versus this Emily Austin gal. Look, I wasn't trying to just drag her that hard. I mean, she had no clue what she was up against. When you got the level of knowledge of Scott Horton, you feel a little bit bad for her. So thank you for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.